Joining us now for a discussion of the recent comments by legendary rapper Scarface that there is too much white and Jewish control of hip-hop is Paul Porter. Paul Porter has served as a program director and talent for BET, consulted for AOL Music, the NBA, and Sound Exchange, and negotiated licensing deals with and has been featured on many media outlets most are familiar with and who need no further mention from me here. Porter is regarded as a music rights activist and is also on the advisory board of the Parents Television Council. He has even been summoned to testify before Congress. You can learn more about Paul Porter, Rap Rehab, and more by checking him out at raprehab.com. Paul Porter, thanks again for joining us.
Hey, man, my pleasure, man.
So, we've just aired some edited segments of Scarface's comments, and let's just start from the top. How right or wrong is he that there's too much white and Jewish control over hip-hop?
Well, I mean, it's white and Jewish control of all the media, so he's on point. I mean, that hasn't changed. The music industry is, led by people that don't look like the product and aren't sensitive to the product. And, I've been preaching this to the choir for over a decade now, and nobody gets what happens behind the scenes because they're great at hiding it. Who's leading who? We don't talk about Leor Cohen. We don't talk about Doug Morris or Jimmy Iovine or, Barry Levine or we just don't talk about who the decision makers and the folks are making the big bucks.
Yeah, you mentioned some of them, Jimmy Iovine at Interscope Records. I'm looking also, Barry Weiss is the CEO of Def Jam.
Monty and Avery Lippman are over at Universal Records. They're the ones that, basically run everything that happens with Cash Money. Right.
And Doug Morris is the CEO of Sony Music. And even though it's a Stephen Cooper who's the CEO of Warner Music, which doesn't, to me, strike me as a particularly Jewish name, his parent company at Access Industries is Leo Blavatnik, who is indeed a Soviet-born Ukrainian Jew. So it really isn't a question of whether or not there is, an overrepresentation of Jews and specifically and more broadly, of course, speaking, white people at the top of these organizations. But one question I did want to ask you to expand on for our audience is when Scarface makes these claims that it's this leadership that corrupts the art, that controls the art. How exactly does that work? I mean, when somebody, because a lot of people are going to say, well, nobody makes these artists do these songs. Scarface said that they put out music that makes us look dumb. And as you said, have no relationship and as he said, no close relationship to the communities that produce this music. But how exactly does that work? Because again, a lot of people are going to say, come on, man, nobody's making them sing these songs. Nobody's making them do this, that, and the third. How is it that you describe how this control actually plays out?
Well, I mean, there's directives from A&R of what themes they want. And you can always find somebody to do a track. It's not like, look, let's be real, man. A lot of these commercial artists really aren't that talented. It's more like a production house where they just change the names and faces of, 80% of the artists, and there's 2 out of every 20 that last for more than 4 or 5 years. So in terms of content, they're going to direct what they want. We've been stuck in this gangster rap mode now for almost 20 years. And at one time it was popular, but when you look at numbers, and I study numbers, it's been declining in the suburbs. It's been declining in the hood. But I also think that, people of color can do a better job of rejecting this. But, it's like programming music to sheep, man. If somebody's leading the herd and, the station is Power 99, folks just think it's black and they follow along and really don't know what's going on.
As I've been talking about for years, it's through you and people like Lisa Fagers at Industry Ears and other people that you all have worked with that I've learned over the years about this issue of sales and promotion and spins in particular. And when you look at the top spins on radio and in video around the country and the songs that get picked up for commercials or to be part of video games, there is a process behind that could speak a little bit more also to how this control does in fact play out, how it is indeed mechanized. So
the process is like everything American. Money equals power. So, the major record labels have the money to market it, promote it, and to feed the hands that deliver it to you. They control the messengers. In terms of, programming companies, it's always been a great marriage between radio and records. And I don't care what anybody says, that it's still really important to have radio in the commercial outlets. Yes, there's an underground market. Yes, you can reach a lot of folks, but, a couple of weeks ago when the MTV VMAs were on, they got 10 million people watching. A month and a half before that, the BET Awards got 7 million people and another couple million on the rerun. So, commercial outlets still control most of the media and most of the people, and the repetition that's this increased, and that happens because pay-for-play is still alive. Payola's been around forever, where, broadcasters or programmers get paid under the table cash or benefits or contracts or certain things to play certain product numerous times. And the repetition has increased. The variety has decreased. So it's a whole lot easier. If Hot 97 in New York plays, A$AP Rocky 101 times in a 7-day period, well, it's going to garner some attention. It's going to garner interest and likes, and other people are going to follow along. But that same type record 10 years ago, instead of getting 100 spins, would have had 40 spins. So, they just force feed you. It's like, it's incredible when you know what goes on inside the system. But who can talk about the system except on a show like this?
Part of this is also one of the lesser discussed topics when people get into the arena of popular culture or media. Everybody whispers it. Everybody talks about it under the table that this issue of Jews control the media and Jews control this, that, and the third. There isn't much discussion of any of even the competing histories as to why that is. Whichever preferred history that explains it. I think it's undeniable that it is that case in terms of the positions of leadership and power in these, in particularly in the media industry, and particularly specifically as we're dealing with this issue of hip hop. But if there is this history that is often told and discussed, that Jews escaping oppression in Eastern Europe come to this country and are shut out of all the major industries, leaving them few avenues, which would include Hollywood and eventually the music industry. And this is part of this sort of what we're always just encouraged to believe is this close relationship between black people and Jews and the history. To what extent does that history mean anything when it comes to the other end of that experience, with, in this case, in terms of black people dealing with the media industry, the music industry, and within hip hop, and how, in your experience, do individual Jews within the industry that I know you've had to work with, how much does that history play into how well they treat these artists, or how well they interact, or how fair they are with this other, as we're often encouraged to believe, in a similarly oppressed community?
Well, unfortunately, I think everybody thinks they're fair. I think they, and I hear that from black folks too, man. I hear that from Jigga and Russell, and, talk about the wealth that rap music and hip hop's created for certain individuals. But they never want to talk about what happens, what pain and what brainwashed mentality that is caused to the masses. So, if you sit down and you talk to Jimmy Iovine, he's going to talk about his philanthropy and how he made Dr. Dre rich and how he's done this for this artist and this artist. So I think in their mind, they've effectively blocked out, the privilege that has been passed down and the partnership. And there's always a couple of dots along the way that they make rich. But, I really don't think they even think it's a problem.
And there's an article from the LA Times, December 19th, 2008, by Joel Stein called How Jewish is Hollywood? And he basically goes through and explains that Hollywood is extremely Jewish, that he struggled to find anyone in leadership in Hollywood that was not a Jew, but then went on basically to make the point, somewhat I think is to what you were just saying, that that this was ultimately a good thing for American society, that without Jews playing such a prominent role, there would have the quality of the popular culture would be diminished. And certainly, I think this is the claim when it comes to what forms of music are selected to be made popular, and including within hip hop, that sort of that it is a favor to us all that these folks have come in and look to save us from what would be a low culture or worse popular culture were they not there. So then, by following that logic, if they are to be given credit for all that is good in popular culture, they too would have to take the blame for all that is bad, including this cycle of never-ending horrific images of black and brown people and what appears to be a never-ending, persistent, dominant, popular, and horrifically negative image that we get in most of commercial rap music. But to the particular issue raised by Stein, that ultimately Jewish involvement and control or ownership of dominant media or popular media is good. Is that somewhat similar to what you were just describing? Is that the sentiment?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if I was in control of things, I would think of it the same way. Like I'm doing goodness, and we've seen this story play out with Hollywood and in film, and we've accepted that the role of people of color. Yeah, there's the butler, there's the this, but Hollywood has been that way for generations now, and the music industry is the same way. And it's either you accept it or you learn how to, select and program yourself around it.
Now, you mentioned briefly that you thought that there was more that we could do to resist these images that again, as I've argued, and similar to you and many others, that are imposed on us. And this was Scarface's ultimate point, that through the power of ownership and copyright control and payola and plugola and the concentration of ownership within the entire media industry, you can't really become famous in popular culture without being selected by these handful of major corporations, which at really this point are really just three in the music industry, that UMG, Sony, and Warner Music, that determine all the popular rap and hip hop that we get. But you alluded at the beginning of our conversation to this idea that there was more that we could do to resist this. As we close, what are some of those things that you would suggest?
Well, I think, what I've done personally, that I think you got to make folks aware that what the culture is and how it's, determined and who selects it. And until we start having larger discussions or one-on-ones, and I've been to tons of lectures and, doing presentations, and that's why I formed RapRehab.com. I give some of the normal information that sucks them in, and then I give them, drug pimps, the Lipmans, Birdman, and Cash Money. They all run hand in hand, but when you look at it just by looking at the commercial world, you have no idea of what's going on. And unfortunately, commercial media is not going to talk about it. And that's why the numbers are so skewed in getting the message out there. Luckily the internet has enlightened some folks, and, these discussions happen. But once you learn it, you learn how to cut it out your system and stop being force-fed and brainwashing generations. But I don't think there's enough folks that even know something's wrong, and that's the scary point.
Paul Porter, raprehab.com. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate your work. We'll keep linking to it and looking to build.
Right
Thanks
now,
again.
Paul Porter, the industry leader, industry is, owner, founder, Rap Rehab. Mr. Porter, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, man, glad to be here with your brothers, man.
Yes, sir. So let's slide right in here. First of all, that was an awesome interview that we saw on what is that, RTTV? RTTV. That was
well, you know what? I get shocked, man. I've done a lot of press, and I have to say that Abby Martin came more prepared, and more importantly, she let us speak. You know, and that doesn't happen too often on any of these shows or even radio shows. And the day after, I did a interview on Sirius XM that was just as free and open. So maybe the tide is changing and people are listening. And
for the listeners that don't know what we might possibly be talking about, can you tell them the subject matter of this conversation you participated in with Russia Today?
Yeah, RT television is now the Russian Times. It used to be Russia Today. It's in the U.S. and 40 other countries. But they wanted to talk about the corporate takeover of rap music and where it's going and how to get there. And, you know, they dedicated 7.5 minutes at the top of their show. So I was shocked because everybody always says they want to talk about rap music, but normally when they want to talk about it, it's from the perspective of, you know, who's doing wrong. And, you know, it's always about the rappers. It's not the corporate influence. And,
gotcha.
You know, they let us talk about everything.
Yeah, and that was pretty interesting while they were speaking about the Lil Waynes and the Rick Rosses, how you immediately pointed out the fact that, yeah, they're doing what they're doing, but who should we really be looking at? These, and you actually called out some names.
Yeah, the Lipmans and, you know, Doug Mars and the folks that are running the companies. You can always find somebody to, you know, point a finger at, or a bad rap lyric or a line, but we never hear an interview with the real deal, man. The folks that greenlight the projects and make them stars and everything else. So, you know, that's why I always try to mention some of the names that are behind the scenes that are really the folks that have been running it, the Jimmy Iovine's and so on, even though now he's gone from Interscope. He was like the number one guy for 20 years, and nobody's ever interviewed him on the subject of hip-hop music.
What about Lucian Grange?
Well, I mean, the people that run the company under him, the Littmans at Universal Republic, and, you know, some of the other people, Lucian Grange, I don't even think he knows what happens at the company.
Really?
To be honest.
Wow.
I mean, he's so far up the totem pole, you know, but I know for sure some of the more powerful folks that are in there, the Lippman brothers are young, and they're in the office every day making things happen.
So on a corporate news level, I understand what you're saying, and I can't recall any time I've seen a Lucian Grange or Lippman or any of these individuals who have the power and are the decision makers at these corporations or for these labels. Why isn't like CBS or anybody reaching out to them? You know, I've seen Fox News on Bill O'Reilly, you know, interview some hip hop activists who are, you know, talking about it, but then the standard, you know, line from the host is to attack the artists and not, you know, the corporation. So I wonder if they've ever reached out and if they just declined to come on.
But they always say no.
Okay.
They always say no. No comment is the best comment. You know, the closest you'll ever get to a top executive was the days of Russell, when Russell used to go on. But other than that, you see Leo Cohen at conferences, but he's not going to put himself under fire like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you, Paul, in regards to the radio stations, how they continue to play the same music over and over, which seems to be a non-ending battle unless we design our own outlets. What do you think about the content of music in general?
I mean, it's substandard. It's been substandard for 10, 15 years for sure. And it's not going to change until folks either die or you take it away from them. You know, you can't petition your way to getting them to change or stand out in front of buildings. It's like the U.S. It's got to be some hostile takeover. And because the artists aren't going to do it, as long as the checks are being cut, you know, this is a capitalism society. And getting somebody to change something is really hard, man. You know, and we're not doing hard things anymore. We're really doing what the media is telling us. You know, folks are upset at Stand Your Ground, but they're not upset at the images that make, you know, black young males in fear in their own community. So it's, you know, I gotta say, man, it's a never-ending battle, and we're losing more than winning.
Well, I see a nice article on the site in regards to Lil Boosie. Lil Boosie, he, undisputed rap king. The Atlantic records say they putting the whole house on him. All bets is on him. Now, the flip side of that is I know some folks in Baton Rouge that's like he better not show his face around there again. Do you think that we're looking at another? You know, let's push away the Trinidad James. Let's hurry up and push away the Chief Keefs. Let's do another little. Let's find something else that's going to do an open air market and slam dance on the mental minds right now and honor beating bodies and things of that nature. I mean, that's street. I mean, I dig it. That's street. What do you think the turnout of this one's going to be?
Well, you know, it's funny. The writer that submitted the piece on Lil Boosie is in the South, and, you know, I got strong Baton Rouge ties. And the honesty about him is he really was a gangster. He really was a murderer. He wasn't a Rick Ross. Not that I support it, but at least I understand his lyrics were a little bit more true than 98% of the cats that were out here. That's why I posted the article, because I think everybody should be able to have their own perspective, and, you know, you should be able to hear from both sides. Of course Atlantic is going to sell it like crazy, because that's what they do.
Right.
And people love him.
Right. He's got a heck of a fan base, real fan base, no doubt about it.
Yeah, his fans spend money. Everybody talk about fans. They spend money. They talk about them. I got a story on there from a couple of years on him, and I swear, it kills me how many people, 100 people a day read the story. I mean, they're Googling, waiting for him to come out of prison. He's out. So Atlantic, Craig Kalman, and the folks over there, they're going to come with the big dollars, and Trill Entertainment will be back on the map.
Now, your site is, you know, from, I mean, we're not even halfway into this year, and I don't think a lot of people understand how you keep popping the grid off, like you getting over 1 million hits and things of this nature, to the point that you did a whole reconstruction. What's next coming up for Rap Rehab?
Well, we're trying to grow. Look, I've been blessed, man. I got some good writers, people on board that believe that, you know, there's a large body of folks out here that are conscious, that love hip-hop, that want to learn and want to think and just not be entertained. So I'm pushing full speed ahead. Well, we just did the site over in January, and I'm doing it over again to allow more video and to make it a lot more user-friendly and to have more content and to promote, you know, the music in terms of a channel for music and different things.
An alternative to a world star?
Well, I mean, everything's alternative to World Star. I mean, World Star is so, you know, but it's the dominant site. You know, if you look at it, you know, last year it did 54 million people, and that's what the scary thing is.
Right.
So, you know, I'm trying to get 1 million, and they got 54 million. So it shows it's always an uphill battle. And people are programmed to watch foolishness all the time, and it's, you know, it baffles me. But you know, that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about it on your show.
I know that's right. Well, we're going to take a quick station identification. We're going to slide back in with, I don't know. It seems as though while we progress, you get people that jump in their feelings and they just jump out the closet on themselves. And no hints on that. We're going to splash on that for a hot second. You're tuned into Militant Minded Radio on the Black Talk Radio Network. We got Paul Porter from Rap Rehab. We'll be right back.
State of hip-hop is awful, straight terrible. It promotes death and destruction now. The original principles of hip-hop culture is peace, unity, love, and having fun. The principles of what we call slave hip-hop is violence, chaos, hate, and danger. Slave hip-hop must be abolished, and we must save African people from this nonsense and bring hip-hop back to where it used to be.
360 wise guys worldwide.
I've exposed these banners in a major fashion. You ain't built like this.
What you know about being bound?
This is Yasin, 360 Wise Guy of the Militant Minded Radio. Tune in every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock on the Black Talk Radio Network.
With no stomach, I'm cutting your powder with bad salt. Who wanna you love smoking loud? I'm dipping treason and bombing fluid. Have you running butterball, naked straight to the site? You saw behind.
You're tuned in to Militant Minded Radio. I am 360 Wise with Scotty Reed. On the line we have Paul Porter, industry is, owner of Rap Rehab. So let me slide in here real quick on a side note, Paul. Do you think that there's a lack of, is it possible, and I know this is a life situation, the answer is just yes, but I just want to hear, well, let me say, why does it seem that there's a lack of support all the way around the board when people are pushing the same direction? Why does it seem, and I'm speaking about Dr. Watkins.
Well, look, man, there's a point where talking heads become talking heads, where there's a lot of our leaders that are in the public eye that are out for financial gain only. And, sometimes I think it's like you guys always challenge, those on top. We as a people, we look blindlessly at our leaders and think what they're talking is the truth. And, just because you're on television or you're popular and people bite into it and they don't process information too well. And that's the scary part. Half of the fight comes from fighting the people that you're trying to save. I call it the Harriet Tubman issue. When she was trying to free slaves, slaves were like, nah, I'm cool. And we don't even support each other, And I know that for a fact. It's funny. I took a couple of Facebook ads to donate to Rap Rehab. I got the stats in. I saw, like 50,000 people saw it on the site, and I got 2 donations totaling $30. Well, the Facebook ad cost me $6.99. No, $12.99 or whatever it was, because I did it on the but we're not used to. We'll send our money to UNCF and NAACP, or the church, but some of the other things we miss out on all the time.
I got a question about that particular program. Now, I read the article and we linked to the piece on Rap Rehab concerning Dr. Watkins. And it seems, from what I could gather, which I wasn't able to hear that interview he did on Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers, and I got questions about her as well. But it seems like, you took issue with the conversation not being genuine, that it wasn't really about calling out, everybody that is poisoning our communities through these radio stations with this murder music.
Well, my thing with Boyce Watkins was, look, you on Hot 97, the original hip-hop station in America, the #1 station in New York for hip-hop. Emmons Broadcasting owns Power 106 in L.A., the #2 station in the country, and you're going to go on there and talk about Clear Channel Radio. Then everybody on the conversation on the panel all chimes in about Clear Channel, who has the opposing station in New York, Power 105, and they're acting like they don't play the same sick, crazy music. And all the commercial outlets in the country do. I was supposed to be on that show, that's why I was listening. But I never got on that show, so I mentioned it to him, who was a Facebook friend, like, wow, bruh, you gonna go on Hot 97 and talk about Clear Channel. He wrote, fuck this, blah, 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 and unfriended me like a little bitch. All he does is criticize and talk about people, but when he's wrong, they said, "Make you wrong. You sold yourself out." But his excuse was he didn't know who owned it. Well, if you're supposed to be the people's scholar, study up, look at Wikipedia, know where you're at. You're in Hot 97 in New York, so there's no excuse, and that's why I blasted him. Plus, he had to go lie to me, act a lie about me, and say, I'm in it for the money. As we all know, social justice has no money. You get a lot of pride in what you do, but I don't think anybody's breaking down the banks.
No, I don't think so either.
Unless your name's Reverend Sharpton.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, how about that?
I got a question about this show, Street Soldiers. Okay, I just found out about it when I read your article, so I, did the People's Scholarly thing, and I looked up some stuff about it, right? So I know what I'm talking about, or at least, what to base my questions on for you, Mr. Porter. But Lisa Evers, first question. Lisa Evers, is that a sister or is that a white female?
No. Yeah, she's a white female. She's been doing the show for 20 years. As long as the station's been on the air, Lisa's been a host. She does she's a reporter on a television station, the local Fox station up there. And the show's highly popular. They do tackle subjects that are a little abnormal for a hip-hop station in that time slot. And you can listen to all the shows. The show, I think it was March 2nd or March 3rd that Boyce Watkins was on. They do a good job of putting the podcast up on the Street Soldier page on Hot 97, and you can listen for yourself. But, yeah, she is white, and I'm not saying that white people can't do a good job, and I think she does a pretty good job of bringing topics on in a muted way that a commercial outlet would do.
In a muted way. So, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, so my question is that this is more fluff than substance, in your opinion, is, not to really make it interesting, but don't educate nobody on what's really going on.
Yeah, I think sometimes they do. I used to listen to the show when I was in New York before it used to air on Sunday evenings, and they would touch on some subjects that were powerful, that was away from the music and what they were doing. So it's hard for me to support something if it's like the KKK talking about minority education, and they could have a great discussion on it, but at the same time, they're poisoning the same people that they're talking about.
Right.
So, you know, that's the weird thing about the Street Soldiers show, that it's on like the number one manipulator in New York.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna bash this show. I was surprised when they called me to be a guest, because I used to work there. But then again, I shouldn't have been surprised, because they canceled me when the show was on. When I'm sitting at my house waiting for it, I get a call saying I won't be on. So
you know, and this is not anything against her as a white woman per se, but I mean, I'm looking at the promo for the show, and it's just hard for me to imagine, you know, a white female hosting conversations with street soldiers in the title. You know what I'm saying? Like, she hard in the streets, and, you know, so it just struck me as odd.
What I know, but why are you surprised? Hot 97, one of their biggest personalities is Rosenberg, a Jewish kid who loves hip hop.
Yeah, he
that's
loves
the mass. Mm-hmm. That's the grand mass that all these stations do. Yeah, when you find a brother on a country station hosting Morning Drive or programming it, let me know. But that's the big mystery, that we always allow all these programmers, and, you know, the Kathy Hughes piece that I ran about black ownership. And, you know, Kathy's stance was that you get black people in power. Well, everybody in her programming from CFO, all the people up top are white. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, it's just not street soldiers. It's, you know, corporate media in general. There's a couple of dots up there, just like they are at record labels, but, you know, all the people that signed the checks aren't black. Never have been.
Let me ask you this here. Any callers that want to chime in, ask a quick question, it's 704-951-5030. Again, that's 704-951-5030. 5030. Another interesting piece.
Yasin, we're going to start opening up that conference line to take calls as well. Number of people dialed in the conference line, hit *6. That'll put you in the caller's queue. Press 1, and then we'll bring you in. So that's *6 if you got a question or comment, and follow the prompts.
There we go. Message to notice to black artists: your services are no longer needed. We talking powerful. It's like, you know, I'm sitting at the edge of my seat waiting to see what's going to outdo this. Give me what were your thoughts? Because right after this, Billboard took up the whole daggone article. Now, how does this article end up on Billboard? And the title on Billboard is saying that this article shook the whole industry. Well, we're still in the first half of this year. You know, we got 4 quarters when it comes to the music industry. I already put my bets on you with my cousin Marcus that you'll be on the news 3 times. Well, you did 3 times last year, so it looks like it might be 7 this year, looking at the way the trends are going. So I gotta up my bets with him. But what's the deal with Sebastian's article? Sebastian's article.
Well, the good thing, it was perfect timing.
Wow.
You know, it hit right before the Grammys, 2 weeks before the Grammys. Then all the information about the charts in 2013 happened. You know, luckily I'm connected with a whole bunch of folks in the industry. It created a buzz. But, I mean, I'm getting letters from Scotland, from Osaka, from all over. That letter did crazy numbers in terms of 250,000 people read it, and it was shared on websites, probably 200 websites. So, I mean, that rarely happens, but I think it touched home because everybody knows that black music's dying. And, you know, for example, Sebastian, he's a white guy from France.
Right.
You know, but he's a true hip-hop head, used to work with KRS-One as a publicist, and he decided to do a satire. When I saw it, I was like, yo, man, this thing's going to be big, and watch the numbers grow, and the numbers grow. And you know, it sort of reached home because everybody knows that the art form has been dying for a while. And I've been talking about it for over 10 years, but now everybody's finally catching up, and it feels good that people are, tuning in to say, yeah, I want to change.
When you say the art form is dying, I mean, is there not, well, obviously, because we do this program and we talk to, many different artists that might be considered independent or underground, I mean, it's still people out there that's making what I would call real hip-hop. We had, play that clip of Paradise Gray talking about the principles of hip-hop. So I think it's getting made, and are you afraid that...
Yeah, but before I think there was a balance when you got to hear some of it.
So that's what you're saying is dying in terms of airplay?
Yeah. It's dying in the community. I mean, commercial, look, I love underground. I love it, but my thing is to fight for balance above ground,
Right.
Because this makes it that more easier to get the message out.
Right.
But when the masses are controlling, I call it the masses, the masters are controlling what the public's going to hear, they've decided to do something else. So, yeah, underground is still here. We got plenty of creative artists, but the problem is that the masses just don't get to see it or to search it out. And that's our biggest problem, is turning, these three big companies that dominate it. And I'm all for freedom of speech, man. I believe in some balance, though. It's just so far gone that, it's hard to keep this fight up. And that's why we all work so hard at spreading the word, but it's, and the real trend is hip-hop's dying. Everything's turning into EDM and dance music.
You mentioned freedom of speech, and I'm actually working on a piece in terms of gang signs and freedom of speech. You had this high school student, honor student, AB, A's and B's, plays on the football team, number 3. He takes a picture after a biology project in his biology class, being taken by the picture. He throws up the number 3. Next thing you know, he getting suspended for throwing up gang signs. And I started researching that and seeing if there's any cases of where this is being challenged on First Amendment. And one of the things I was thinking about, gang signs or not, this is still freedom of expression. And you'll throw gangster rap all up on the public airways. And I'm talking about, the airways controlled by the FCC that's supposed to belong to the public, that's supposed to belong to the community. And, in their promotional material, you'll see some of these rappers throwing up gang signs and in their videos. And it's always claimed freedom of speech. But then when these young folks, these high school students or what have you, they emulate that culture that's being pushed to them, there's real world consequences for them, like getting suspended from high school for a week that, of course, can hurt you in terms of your college application. So, they say freedom of speech, but you know what I'm saying? That's sort of like stand your ground law. It's not being applied equally.
Oh no, it's not. And look, there's a group that in Pittsburgh that I just posted about that's doing time now for their lyrics in one of their music videos where they took it as a terrorist threat because, it was about after police. They mentioned the policeman. They're actually in prison doing time. So, look, the justice system is the justice system. And on stand your ground, I think that is a waste of time. Nobody knows what stand your ground is. I'm in the state of Florida. I've carried a gun legally for over 20 years. Even when I was back in Maryland, I got a permit. And stand your ground had nothing to do with these people going to jail. It's self-defense. That's what the trial was. And when you have a jury that thinks lowly of black folks because of the images that are engraved in their memory banks and their DNA for centuries, just like black people fear young black kids in hoods, of course white people do. But we never stand up to the images. We always stand up at the last minute when the jail sentence gets nullified or something happens. But nobody wants to stand up to the image, and this whole stand your ground thing to me is a joke. I'm never trusting the criminal justice system. You know, we could talk about it, but what we could do more to, you know, show some positive images of black folks through music, through news and media, and maybe some things will change, but we're not changing that.
You know, Brother Quabana, he comes on the show. Sometimes he's based out there near Chicago, and he has what's called the Clear the Airwaves project. Are you aware of that project?
Oh, yeah. I've talked to him, worked with him, posted his stuff. I'm quite aware of it.
Yeah, I kind of think that that's worthwhile. I think that we do need to take back the airways, and we really need to fight, man, instead of accepting all the things you just talked about when it comes to public airway. When you talking satellite radio, when you talking cable television, okay, so they pretty much can get away with more things according to the way the rules are set up. But when we're talking like a Hot 97, when we're talking about something that's on that FM dial, then we talking public airways. We're talking about those airways are supposed to belong to that community, but I don't see too many people stepping up and taking ownership of it, except for, through people that's working on projects like Clear the Airways project.
Yeah, well, over the last 4 years, I've been working on with my partner getting a low-powered FM in Orlando. Well, we got it. We got our own radio station that's going to be on the air in Orlando as soon as the FCC gives us the final go in Pine Hills, Florida. Mm-hmm. The worst section of Orlando, at least what it's known to be. But we got to learn how to start playing the policy game along with, these protests. So I went right through the FCC, did the buddy system, did the engineering checks, and the station's going to be real. And it didn't cost a lot of money. It cost $20,000 to get a station. So what if it's only going to reach 30 to 40 miles if the tower's in the right spot? But here's a radio station.
Right. That's right. And that's Rap Rehab, where consciousness lives. How about that?
Yep, well, that's what we're trying to do. That's for sure.
Hey, Paul, I thank you for chiming in. Again, I thank you for blessing Warstar Hip Hop. And any last words or connects besides RapRehab.com and at Rap Rehab you want to holler at the listeners about on how to reach you?
Look, on the website, I try to answer every call, every email. Info's up on RapRehab.com. I appreciate what you brothers are doing, and if there's something that you want to share on the pages, I'm all open for it. I always tell people if it's something to enlighten and empower, I'm with it. It doesn't take me much to copy and paste to print a story or to nail it out there, and I think social media is something that we all have to take advantage from and create our own channels. Until it happens, we're going to be behind the 8 ball. I'm trying to get in front.
Yeah, we're trying to ride right in front with you. All right, man. Well, thank you for chiming in. Anything there, Scotty, before Paul leads us to the next interview?
No, I just again want to thank Paul for the work that he doing, the information that he putting out there to the people, and something that he's touched upon earlier, like, a world star where you can go see, mentally ill people, elderly people, children being exploited and being abused can do $50 million a month, but a Rap Rehab, doing what it can to do $1 million. Well, that's still encouraging numbers to me. That, that's 1 million people that just might be in their right mind and can do something to help, the 50 million that's going out of their minds. And so I think it's like media's like a virus. And so just keep doing what you're doing, bro. And anything the Black Talk Media Project can do to assist you, just let us know.
All right. Thank you, man. Appreciate it, brother.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Have a blessed one. Thanks a lot, Paul. All right.